I'm VJ Hamilton and welcome to the Autoimmune Reset, the place for you to learn how to thrive with autoimmune disease and feel empowered to take steps to transform your health to feel better than ever. You can start making changes today to improve your health. So with every episode, my mission is to share with you simple ways to up-level your diet and lifestyle with key learnings from my own journey reversing autoimmune disease and inspirational stories from those who have reset their autoimmune symptoms and are now thriving in life. I suffered from autoimmune disease for over 25 years and now I live symptom-free, and I wish the same for you as well. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Autoimmune Reset podcast. I'm your host, VJ Hamilton. I'm a nutritionist, scientist and expert in autoimmune disease. And today we're diving into a topic that is close to my heart, and that is thyroid health, because I know firsthand how frustrating it can be when you are dealing with symptoms that are related to low thyroid function. And I was never diagnosed with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, but what I did have was very low thyroid hormone and low T3, which is the active thyroid hormone. So some of my symptoms that related to low thyroid hormone, like fatigue, hair loss and dry skin, weren't recognized as being related to my thyroid because I was never diagnosed with that. But it was only through my own investigations that I realized that I had subclinical hypothyroidism. And there are various ways that you can test for that. You can test your temperature in the morning to see if it's low. You can make a note of symptoms that are more related to hypothyroidism. And I would have very cold hands and feet and have a lot of cold intolerance. That can be a symptom. And my skin was very dry as well. And then I did my own testing. I did a full thyroid panel rather than just looking at something called TSH, which we'll be touching on. And that is when I discovered that I had very low T3. And I work with many clients with autoimmune conditions, but also alopecia. And what we find is that they have had their thyroid tested for years and their TSH has been in range, but actually their thyroid hormones are very low. And when your thyroid hormones are very low, it's very hard to improve your symptoms, especially if you're experiencing hair loss and getting the hair to grow. So that is why this is an important area for me. I think it was a major factor in a lot of the symptoms that I was experiencing when I had autoimmune conditions, so over 9 years ago now. Over time, I have been reflecting from doing this podcast, from working with clients, and thinking about, well, what were the major issues that I was dealing with at the time? And this was certainly one of them. And that's why I'm excited to share this podcast episode with you, to talk a little bit more about the thyroid, but also to talk about some of the other systems and organs in the body which are extremely important for the thyroid, which includes the gut, the adrenals and the liver. And these are often overlooked. We just think about our thyroid when we are diagnosed with hypothyroidism, but actually the gut, the liver and the adrenals are essential in thyroid function as well. And when I'm working with a client, I will be thinking about which particular system we need to work on to support their thyroid rather than just thinking about the thyroid itself. And that's why I have also created a program, Thyroid Revival, which is designed to support and restore your thyroid function. And that is the foundational piece of the program. But also there is this level of personalization where you will be able to choose whether to follow a protocol for your adrenal health, for your liver health, or for your gut health. And I'll tell you a bit more about the program at the end of the episode, and also explain a little bit about how these different organs and systems can contribute to low thyroid function. And if you have any questions or you'd like to learn more about the program, then feel free to go to the show notes and I will put a link there. The next live workshop is on the 7th of March, so I'd love to see you over there, and you will get instant access to the course as soon as you sign up, and then I will see you for the live workshop next week. So you may have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, you might have Hashimoto's, or you might have symptoms of hypothyroidism. but you have been told that your labs are normal, which happened to me. But you suspect that this might be an issue for you. And if so, then hopefully you are going to learn more about it in this episode. And that's going to help you personalize your approach when you are focusing on your health. So let's talk about how the thyroid works and these supporting organs, because the thyroid is part of the hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis, the HPT axis, and the hypothalamus is in the brain and it senses thyroid hormone levels and it releases something called thyrotropic releasing hormone, TRH, and that tells the pituitary what to do. So these are all interlinked, and obviously when I'm working with a client and I see the results of their thyroid panel, I am thinking, well, which element do we need to work on? Is it actually their thyroid, or is it something else? Because there is also the pituitary gland, and that responds to the TRH that is released from the hypothalamus. That releases thyroid stimulating hormone, which is the common marker that is tested at the doctors, and that signals to the thyroid to make the hormones. And then we have the thyroid gland itself, where it makes T4, which is the inactive thyroid hormone, and a very small amount of T3, which is the active form of the hormone. That's the hormone that is going to make you feel better when it is at optimal amounts rather than anything else. And then we have the conversion of T4 to T3. This is absolutely vital, and I see this conversion very low in people that have not been diagnosed with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, but they are feeling all the symptoms of hypothyroidism, which is what was happening with me. And that's when the body must convert the T4 to T3, and there are various organs that support that conversion, which include the liver, the gut, and some of the peripheral tissues as well, which can happen in the cells. So now let's talk about lab testing, because there are various things that can come up on lab testing, and it is just worth understanding what each of these factors is, because again, that helps you build a picture of what's going on. So the one that you're probably most familiar with is TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone. This is the one that you are going to get tested routinely. And if you go to your doctor asking for a thyroid test, this is probably the one that they're going to do. And as I said, this is produced by the pituitary gland. And if your thyroid hormone is too high in your body, which can happen in conditions like Graves' disease, then your TSH will come down because it has detected that there's a lot of thyroid hormone. However, if it detects that there is a low amount of thyroid hormone, then your TSH will go up, and it's your TSH being high that is often the issue with hypothyroidism. But there are other factors to that as well, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the patterns, not go too much into the detail, but just to give you a bit of an insight into what some of these patterns with your thyroid test results means. And if you are interested in doing a thyroid panel, I do offer the full panel if you would like that extra insight into what is happening in your thyroid. There is also T4, which, as I said, is that inactive form of thyroid hormone, but your body has to convert the T4 to T3 for you to reap the benefits of that T4. And that can be impacted by various things like issues with your liver and issues with your gut and nutrient deficiencies, but it is absolutely key to you feeling better. Then we have T3, which is the active thyroid hormone, and that directly affects your metabolism, your energy, your body temperature, and many other functions in the body. So that is absolutely key. The conversion of T4 to T3 can happen in the gut, in the liver, and it is often impaired when you have issues with your liver function, you are stressed, or you have chronic inflammation. Another interesting marker is reverse T3. So this is that active T3 hormone, but it's actually now in an inactive form, and it can bind to the thyroid receptors. So that's what activates your body to do things when the hormone binds to a receptor, but it actually doesn't activate them. So a high reverse T3 can actually mean that your body is under stress, it's experiencing inflammation, you might have a chronic infection, nutrient imbalances, or a sluggish liver. So it's a really good marker to check as well. And then we have the thyroid antibodies, the TPO and TG antibodies. And if these are high, then that could be a sign of an autoimmune thyroid disease, such as Hashimoto's. And many people will contact me when they have a high amount of these antibodies, but they haven't been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, and they want to know whether they should start doing something about the fact that they have high antibodies. And you may have heard me say this before, but there are stages with an autoimmune condition, and stage 1 is when you have the antibodies present, and that to me is when I would be doing something about my health to make sure that it didn't progress into something like Hashimoto's, where I was having lots of symptoms. And there are various things that you can do to help lower your antibodies, and I do cover this in the Thyroid Revival, my new program. I give you the option of what area you need to focus on the most when it comes to your thyroid health. Is it the conversion of T4 to T3? Is it bringing down your thyroid antibodies? Is it supporting the thyroid function itself? Because that's absolutely key. Knowing which area you need to focus on the most is key. And for example, in my own health, it was focusing on that conversion of T4 to T3, and I still focus on that today. So let's just touch on the different thyroid patterns that I generally see in my clinic and what it can mean. So if you have a high TSH but a low T4 and T3, this is the classic primary hypothyroidism, and that means that the thyroid isn't producing enough hormones, and that can be linked to nutrient deficiencies, it can be linked to Hashimoto's, and it can be linked to iodine imbalance as well. When somebody has an issue with the thyroid itself, you've got to ask the question of why is that happening? And if it is Hashimoto's, then you know that it's to do with an autoimmune response. Sometimes it can be to do with heavy metal exposure or toxicity, and that's something I often investigate when my client has hypothyroidism. And it can also be to do with nutrient deficiencies. Another pattern I commonly see is low TSH and low T4 and T3. And that suggests an issue with the pituitary gland, because there is a feedback loop between thyroid hormones and TSH. And you'd expect if your T4 and T3 were low, that your TSH would be high. But if that is not happening and you have a low TSH and a low T4 and T3, that is often more likely to be an issue with the pituitary gland and could be caused by chronic stress, inflammation, brain injury, or even long-term dieting. The pituitary isn't sending enough signals to stimulate the thyroid, and that can be the issue. So that's certainly one to look out for. Another is normal TSH, so your TSH is in range, but you have low T3, and that's what I mentioned about myself. That's what I had, and that's why I wasn't taken seriously, because my TSH was in range, but my T3 was low, and it was still within the reference range, but it was very low, and I was struggling to get my T3 to increase. And this often points to that conversion issue, meaning that your body isn't efficiently converting T4 to T3. And this is often linked to liver dysfunction, gut issues, chronic stress, and nutrient deficiencies like selenium and zinc, all things that I was struggling with at the time. And when I am working with a client who has conversion issues, I'm really looking at what is the system in the body that we need to support the most, because it often will be the gut, the liver, or the adrenals, and that can make a huge difference to their thyroid function without even considering the thyroid. Then we have high reverse T3, and this is an adaptive response that your body has where it converts T4 into the inactive form of reverse T3 instead of T3 itself. And that's usually in a response to stress, when you're in a more fight or flight response. It can be infections, inflammation, or heavy metal toxicity. So I am considering all these factors when I'm working with a client, and it is so helpful when I have the thyroid panel, because it just gives me that insight straight away about which pathway we need to support and which organ or system we need to support to see results the most quickly, but also to see results that are going to last, because you are addressing the underlying root cause. So let's talk about the gut-thyroid connection, because as I said in Thyroid Revival, I give you the option, after going through the modules and going through the live workshop, of either focusing on the gut, liver, or adrenals, because, as I said, they are absolutely crucial to your thyroid health and your immune health. And your gut plays a major role in thyroid function. Actually, 20% of T4 is converted into T3 in the gut. So if your gut microbiome is imbalanced, or you have something like dysbiosis or inflammation, or your digestion is compromised, then your body is going to struggle to convert that inactive thyroid hormone, the T4, into T3. And there are some key ways that your gut affects the thyroid. So the first is leaky gut syndrome, and we know that 70% of the immune system is in the gut. And when the gut barrier is damaged, and there can be many reasons for that, due to stress, antibiotic use, infections, having food sensitivity like gluten, it can trigger an autoimmune disease. And that's when you're going to have those raised antibody levels. There's also SIBO and dysbiosis, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and those imbalances in the gut can interfere with nutrient absorption, and that can reduce levels of zinc, of selenium and iodine, which are absolutely key to thyroid health. And lastly, low stomach acid, because many people with hypothyroidism will have low stomach acid, and that can lead to poor protein digestion, bloating, and low B12 and iron levels. And I actually spoke about a quick way that you can test your stomach acid levels by using baking soda, and you can check that out on my Instagram account, which is at the Autoimmunity Nutritionist. But I explain how you can test for low stomach acids by just using a little bit of baking soda, putting it in water, drinking that first thing in the morning, and seeing how long it takes for you to burp. And I will put a link to that post in the show notes. So if you want to give that a try, it will give you a better idea whether low stomach acid is a factor in your symptoms. So when it comes to your gut, the key takeaway is that it is an absolutely vital part of your thyroid health. There are various ways that you can support your gut with anti-inflammatory foods, eating nutrient-dense foods, but the truth is, when it comes to your gut health, you really need to understand the underlying imbalances. As part of the program, we'll be talking about that. I'll be giving you some key ways that you can improve your gut health with a specific protocol that will help you to start addressing any gut issues that you may have. And I do send you out a questionnaire that you can complete, which will give you a better idea of whether your gut, liver, or adrenal health might be impacting your thyroid health the most. Next, we have the liver, and the liver is absolutely critical for thyroid health because 60% of T4 is converted into that active T3 in the liver. So when I'm seeing that conversion not working as well, straight away I'm focusing on the liver. And what I will often see is if somebody has this conversion issue, they are also not digesting fats very well. And fat digestion is reliant on the liver and the gallbladder. So if that comes up in a stool test and they have fat in their stool, that is an indication of fat maldigestion, then I'm going to be thinking, actually, we need to be supporting this organ as a priority, and that is going to make the most difference in their health. The liver also removes excess estrogen, and when estrogen is high, it actually suppresses thyroid function. And there is something called estrogen dominance, where you have very high amounts of estrogen in relation to progesterone. And I see that a lot when I'm working with clients with hypothyroidism. They have a lot of estrogen, but not enough progesterone. And I can monitor that on the Dutch Plus test, which is a hormone profile that I run at my clinic. And by working on decreasing estrogen levels by including cruciferous vegetables and broccoli sprouts and other ways that we can really promote the detox of estrogen, that can make a big difference in my clients' thyroid health as well. And also the liver plays a major role in detoxification, so it's clearing out those toxins that can interfere with hormone balance. When it comes to the liver, there are actually two phases of liver detox. And it's important to understand these because what I generally see when it comes to autoimmune conditions is that somebody has a fast phase 1 detox but a slow phase 2. And the reason that is an issue is because in phase 1, what happens is the toxin gets converted into a more reactive compound. And these compounds are referred to as metabolites, and they actually can be more destructive than the toxin itself. And this phase 1 process requires B vitamins, it requires antioxidants and phytonutrients. Generally all the things that you associate with detox, and when you see these detox protocols that you can do, they often focus more on the phytonutrients, so the juices and the fruits and the vegetables that can support this part of detox. However, there is also the phase 2, and if you are creating a lot of these reactive compounds as part of phase 1, but you're not then converting them through phase 2, then you can end up with a buildup of these reactive compounds that can cause more harm than the toxin itself. So you really do need to be thinking about supporting phase 2 as well. And phase 2 relies on certain amino acids, and that's why when a lot of us think of detox, we are just thinking about the juice, the green juices, the lemons, all those phytonutrients in plant-based foods. But protein is absolutely key, because if you're promoting a lot of phase 1, creating a lot of reactive species, and that's creating destruction in your body, and then phase 2 isn't working because you're protein deficient, then that can be a big issue. And that's why it's important to not only be including nutrients into your diet that help with phase 1, but we need to make sure that we have those amino acids like glycine and taurine to help support phase 2. And also sulfur compounds like onions, garlics and cruciferous vegetables are absolutely vital for phase 2 as well. There are different ways that we can detox through phase 2 and phase 1 actually as well, but there are different ways that we can detox through methylation, through sulfonation, through glucuronidation, and there are just various different ways that your body will support phase 2. You just need to make sure that you have those nutrients to help with that. And genetics can play a role as well with this, because there are genes that are really important for detox, like the MTHFR gene, which you may have heard of because it relates to methylation, which is a key part of detoxification. The GST gene, which is important for glutathione, and that is part of phase 2 detoxification as well. And the COMT gene, which is really important for detoxing hormones in our body. And if they're impaired, then that can have a knock-on effect to our phase 2 detox. Now, you may have heard people say that they have a sluggish liver, or you might have been told you have a sluggish liver. So what that actually means is that your body isn't efficiently clearing toxins, hormones and waste products for your body, and this can show up as a poor thyroid hormone conversion, so a low T3 as I mentioned. It can show up as estrogen dominance, and you would experience symptoms like heavy periods, PMS and weight gain, and it can also contribute to skin issues, brain fog and chronic fatigue. So when I am working with a client, I'm going to be assessing whether this is an issue for them and whether we need to support their liver health. This comes up a lot in my clinic, especially when I'm working with clients with autoimmune disease, but also alopecia. We really need to support the liver, and this doesn't happen overnight. You need to do lots of different things to support your liver, but they are quite easy to include in your diet on a regular basis, and that's how I help my clients. Just how can we easily support the liver, even if it's just making sure that you're eating a tabbouleh salad every day because that's got lots of parsley in it, or we might bring in some teas, or just different ways that you can integrate foods that actually support the liver. And there are some key supplements and nutrients that I would recommend as well, but it is such an important organ, not just when it comes to your thyroid, but for your health generally. So it's definitely worth focusing on. But there is also this connection with the gallbladder, and the gallbladder and bile flow play an underrated role when it comes to your thyroid health. Bile helps to remove toxins and excess estrogen, which when high, as I mentioned, can suppress the thyroid function, but it also helps to digest those fat-soluble vitamins. Vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K, which are all critical for thyroid function. So if you've had your gallbladder removed, then you may struggle with fat digestion and detoxification, and that can impact your hormone balance. And clients will come to me and they have had their gallbladder removed and they are not doing anything to support that. And there are various things that you can do, like taking ox bile and other ways that you can support fat digestion when you don't have a gallbladder. And when you don't have a gallbladder, it doesn't mean you're not producing bile, but you might not be producing it at the right amounts or at the right times, and that can affect your digestion. And that's something that I can support with. If you do have a gallbladder, then supporting the gallbladder with bitter foods, taurine, choline, which is found in eggs, and bowel supporting herbs like dandelion, milk thistle, artichoke leaf. These are all things that you can bring in, and they will hopefully help to improve the thyroid hormone conversion and your metabolism. And then lastly, we have the adrenal-thyroid connection. And chronic stress can lead to high cortisol, and that ends up suppressing thyroid hormone production. And when you have an increased amount of that reverse T3, this is often a sign of somebody who is in a chronically stressed state and has a high amount of cortisol. High cortisol can show up in a number of ways, but you might feel that you have fatigue even though you're getting enough sleep. You may experience blood crashes or reliance on caffeine to get through the day. And you may have difficulty waking up in the morning, but you feel completely wired at night. And that is a sign that your cortisol levels are high. And this is when you really want to catch it, because what I find is that when you have high cortisol levels, there are various things that you can do to really help to decrease them with stress management practices. You may have heard that I have started to use a neurosim, and that is really helping to calm my nervous system down. I'll put a link to that in the show notes if you'd like to find out more. But there are many things that you can do with nutrients and ways that you can help to bring down cortisol in your body by calming your stress response and calming down your nervous system. But what can happen after that is that you end up with very low cortisol, and that is when you are completely depleted. You're more likely to be having chronic fatigue syndromes and quite serious chronic fatigue syndrome, and you are just going to struggle to get your energy up no matter what you do. So catching it at the high cortisol level is absolutely key. I mean, there are lots of things you can do when you have low cortisol too, but it often takes longer when you're at that, what we call the third stage of adrenal dysfunction. So what I often find is when I'm working with clients and they have high cortisol, I mean, it's not great, but I'm glad that we've caught it at that stage. And as I said, there are various things that you can do whatever stage you are at, but you are going to take a different approach depending on whether your cortisol levels are high or low. And that's something that I discuss in Thyroid Revival as well. We will focus on blood sugar balancing, nervous system regulation, and sleep optimization to help stabilize the adrenal thyroid connection. But as I said, I have created this program, Thyroid Revival. It starts with a 2-hour workshop. There are also modules that you can go through and a full protocol that you can follow straight away. So if you would like to join, you will get instant access to that. And the next live workshop is on the 7th of March. After that, you will stay in the program for 3 months. There'll be check-in calls that you can attend. And as I said, once you do the live workshop and you decide which area to focus on, you will also be focusing on your adrenal, gut or liver. And I will be guiding you through that. You will have a full protocol which includes dietary recommendations, supplement recommendations, and just things that you can easily incorporate into your life to improve your thyroid health. So I would love you to be part of it. If you would like to sign up, I will put the link in the show notes. The current price is £97 or $125. But the price will be changing from May. This is the introductory price. It will be going up in May, but I would like to share this with you. It's been in the pipeline for a long time, and I'm just glad that I've brought it all together now. And when I'm creating these programs, I really have to think about my own experience, my clinical experience, what I'm seeing with my clients, and bring it all together in a simple way so that I can easily support you through that. and there is a community. It's on a separate portal that you can be part of. You can access it through an app on your phone. You can ask any questions anytime, so you have support throughout the program. And for this program, you won't need to be part of Facebook to be involved, because it's all on a separate site that you can access easily. So again, if you would like to find out more about that, then feel free to check out the link in the show notes. You can sign up this weekend and you can start going through those modules, and then join me on Friday the 7th of March for the first live workshop. And there is another one at the end of March as well, and you'll find all the details as soon as you sign up. If not, have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and I hope to speak to you soon. Take care. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Autoimmune Reset. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you liked it, I would hugely appreciate a review on iTunes, as it helps me understand what you like about the podcast and to help share the information with more people. I'm excited to speak to you next time, and remember, you have the power to take the reins on your health. So keep the faith and celebrate the small wins. Until next time.